The Sanctuary is a place of great power. Power that needs to be protected and kept from falling into the hands of those who may misuse it. A group of guardians will rise to protect it, but by the time their final fight against the threat is over, only one will remain. Hello, and welcome to Snide's Return, a tabletop roleplay podcast. My guest today returns to this particular harbour with a siren song carrying her every step to follow threads through the silent garden. She works alone to create games of great depth, walking us almost home, a guardian, a saviour, a sentinel. We can play her games in our homes, our bastions, our citadels, our sanctuary. Here to chat about her newest game, Sanctuary, is game designer, podcaster, content creator, streamer, and role player Meghan Cross. Meghan, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back. I'm super excited.
It's always a pleasure to sort of have guests back, and yourself, especially with this game that's caught the eye, and I'm so glad you've agreed to sort of come back and step me through it. But in case people haven't listened to our earlier or our first interview or chat together, Meghan, would you mind sort of letting people know who you are and where we can find you, please?
Yeah, of course. I am Meghan. I am found pretty much anywhere you can find a person at Meghan Lynn FTW or as Siren Song Games. Also on Twitter, I am a TTRPG content creator, indie game designer, streamer, podcaster, little bit of everything. Four possums in a trench coat. Your standard run of the mill internet person. But yeah, that I always forget everything about myself whenever somebody is like, "Oh, like tell us who you are." I'm like,
I'm a
I don't
person.
know.
I
Who
make
am
content.
I am a human who enjoys many human hobbies.
Well, our joint hobby, while we've got you here today, TTRPG's your newest game, Sanctuary. You have released a number of wonderful games. They have been showcased on a variety of different actual play streams and podcasts. So please go and check those out as well. Your game's available on itch for IO for
Yep.
purchase.
Yes.
So
Yep. They're all on meganlinftw.itch.io, and physical copies of one particular harbor are on Indie Press Revolution.
okay. One of the games you have released previously that is sort of linked to this one, or can be, should we say, is Sentinel. Would you mind giving us a quick sort of recap almost on what Sentinel is and what people would expect to find when they play that game, please?
Yeah, of course. So Sentinel is my love letter to the Studio Ghibli film Castle in the Sky. I am completely in love with it. I'm completely in love with the robot gardeners that take care of the floating city. And I wrote Sentinel completely inspired by them. And I wanted to make a game about a lone guardian protecting somewhere important. And that's what Sentinel's about. It is a solo journaling game. It could be played collaboratively. I have played it collaboratively with people, but it was designed that you can play it solo. The same with Sanctuary. And Sentinel is really about this lone guardian in a sanctuary in this powerful place, and their last period of time before their watch ends, and it really starts in the middle of things. It's really up for the player to determine at the beginning, like how long the Sentinel has been the lone guardian. And the game is about memory, and it's about reflection, and it's also about safeguarding something important. So the game is played both through like a series of like flashbacks while also dealing with the present and the present state of the sanctuary that the guardian is protecting.
It sounds incredible, and as you say, has been could be run solo journaling or collaboratively. You mentioned there that a sanctuary, and that sort of dovetails nicely into the game that we're going to have a look at and sort of play through today, a mixture of explanation and playthrough as we go. So could you tell us a little bit about Sanctuary before we sort of dive into it a bit more, please?
Yeah, so Sanctuary is what I am calling a companion game to Sentinel. It very well could be played as a prequel. It is designed that it could lead almost immediately into a game of Sentinel after you've played Sanctuary, but I am treating it as a companion game because they can both be played independently of one another. They are fully fleshed games on their own,
Hmm.
um, but they are complementary to each other. And Sanctuary tells the story of everything that happened before Sentinel begins. So Sanctuary is about the sanctuary itself. It's a world building, a map making, and a storytelling game. So the player creates the map of the sanctuary and determines what their sanctuary is, creates their guardians, creates the threat that they're facing to keep the sanctuary safe, and then plays out the conflict between the guardians and the threat leading up until only one guardian being left, which,
Mm.
should you choose, can be your lone guardian in a game of Sentinel if you're not quite done with their story. And
Mm.
it's a game I've wanted to write for a while. I've wanted to write a companion game to Sentinel because Sentinel is probably the game I've written that's the closest to my heart, and it is taken. I've been actively working on this for like a year and a half, and it has been a labor of love, and it has changed form many, many times to get where it is. And I'm just so in love with it as it is now. And I'm very excited to get to share it with people.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've mentioned that it can be a companion game, and a few of the things like you sort of poured your heart into Sentinel and following on with this. What are some of the influences you've taken into the creation of Sanctuary?
Oh, probably the biggest influence when I was writing this game is one of my all-time favorite games, which is Beak, Feather, and Bone, um, published by Possible World Games. It is a absolutely beautiful map-based storytelling game, and every time I play that game, I'm like, I there's just something about it in its simplicity
Mm.
that allows for like such deep storytelling. I'm like, I want to create something like that. Like I want to create a game where you create this world and before you go play around in it. Like I wanted to make something that I've been saying that. So with Sentinel, the Sentinel is the main character of the game. With Sanctuary, the Sanctuary itself is the main character of the game. The
Mm.
Guardians are there and the threat is there, but this game is about the place. And I didn't want it to just be here, answer a couple questions about the sanctuary and then focus on the conflict that happens there. I wanted to spend as much time creating it and making you invested in this place,
Mm.
because as you play through it, like things are happening that are detrimental to this place. And I wanted to make sure that the players have that kind of buy in creating their sanctuary and having spent time creating it. Um, and it's the other big influence, as far as the map making aspect. Like I love The Quiet Year. The Quiet Year is a wonderful map making game by Avery Alder, and that ties map making and storytelling together, and that's what I wanted to do, because I knew I wanted it to be a world building game. I knew I wanted there to be a big world building element because the location is the focus of this game.
Mm.
So I drew from those two games specifically as world building games that really facilitate great narrative storytelling. Um, and then I grabbed from Sentinel and I wanted it to feel like a different game, but I also wanted it to feel like I wanted the voice to be the same
Mm.
across the two. So I spent a lot of time like poring over Sentinel while I was also designing Sanctuary.
Yeah, yeah. And you say about making the place the focal point of the story. So we have our respective copies of the game open and available. So for someone that opens the game up and wants to go into creating their Sanctuary, what is required to play a game of Sanctuary?
Yeah, so all you need to play Sanctuary is a standard deck of cards and a d6, and then something to write on, something to write with. But if you are playing like collaboratively or over video or something like that, you don't necessarily like you want something to be able to kind of note your map. But as
Mm.
far as like the prompts when it gets to the confrontation phase, you don't really need it. Doesn't have as heavy of a journaling aspect if you are playing it collaboratively as you would if you were playing it
Okay.
solo. But you do want something to write on, um and something to write with during your map making phase, and that's it.
All right. Well, I have pencil, I have notepad and sticky notes. I followed the instructions in the PDF, and I have a D6. It's a lovely red Power Rangers one from
Oh,
Renegade
nice.
Game Studios. So a guardian of their own type, I guess,
Yeah.
Power Rangers. And I've separated, following the instructions, the suits out. Are all the suits required to play this game, or are only certain suits?
So all of the suits are not required. So for the first part of the game, which is the map making world building portion, we will just be using the diamond suit. And then when we move into the confrontation phase, we will be using spades and hearts shuffled together into one mini deck, and we don't need clubs for
Okay.
this one.
So I've taken the liberty of separating all the suits out. I have respectively shuffled the diamonds on in isolation, and then the hearts and the spades together to form a deck. Is there anything else we need before we continue?
No, there's nothing else that we need to get going. I do make a note in the game text, and I'll make a note here about just player safety. Safety and comfort of players is always the number one priority, and this is a game that deals very heavily in conflict and loss and death, with the advanced knowledge that this game has a sad ending. This game
Mm.
will end with only one person surviving. Um, so it's just important that you're making sure if you're playing by yourself that you're taking breaks and checking in with yourself. And if you're playing with somebody else, just make sure that you are using safety tools if you need to, or not if you need to. Safety tools are always a good idea. Make sure
Mm.
that you're using safety tools and just checking in with one another um, as you're playing, just to make sure that you are getting your full enjoyment out of it, and not at the detriment of your own safety and comfort.
Of course, of course. Very glad to see that included in the game itself. So as we move into creating our sanctuary map, is there any sort of limit on how small or how large we can make it, or is that down to what sort of factors could we take into consideration there?
It's really up to you. So the way that the map making works is you take that diamond suit and you lay cards face up in your play space in any physical position as you want. And I recommend 4 to 6 for a game that'll last like 2 to 3 hours, depending on like how in depth you want to dig into a lot of these prompts. Sanctuary is a game that can take a long time to play, or it could take a shorter amount of time to play. It all depends on how much time you want to spend with each prompt. It depends on how large of a sanctuary you want. So each card is a location within the sanctuary. So obviously, the more cards, the more locations, which means the more prompts you're answering, which means the phase will last longer.
Okay.
Um, so it's really up to you. I'd say you would get the same amount of enjoyment out of if you did like a 4 card sanctuary where you really poured in and like made your details very refined like in those locations, or if you did one with like 6 or 7 cards where you're a little looser and you'll figure stuff out during play.
Okay.
It really all depends on how large of a space you want to create.
Yeah. Well, should we start with the, or not start? Should we create a 4-card sanctuary between us?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. That'll give us a good play
Okay.
area. Um,
Absolutely.
so, and yeah, and there are sample maps in the game, but you can put them in any layout you want. Like if you want all of the like each card is a location. If you want them all connected, you can connect them all. If you want them a little more spaced out, you can do that as well. I think it really all depends on what kind of sanctuary you want to build.
I think so. Something I was thinking about while reading out through the PDF and before we go into this, I'm going to make an inverted Y, I suppose. So 2 sort of vertical pillars, a
Or,
crossbar, and then a vertical one at the top, furthest away from me, if that makes any sense.
okay,
So an
yep,
upside down capital Y, I guess,
yeah,
almost as best you can make with rectangles,
with 4 cards, yeah.
4 cards and rectangles. So I will quickly give myself a token shuffle. I go 1, 2. Need to move my 6-sided dice. Move that out of the way. So that's left leg, right leg, cross beam, and then final card of
All
my
right.
diamonds laid down.
So once we have placed our cards, there is a list of prompts associated with each card, that'll give you a header prompt and then several follow up questions. And then in addition, there is a question with each prompt about either the guardians or the threat.
Okay.
Um, and I do make a note here that a lot of the details, especially about the guardians and the threat, will come out more in later phases as you go. So don't feel obligated to get a ton of details solidified in this. This is really just giving us our baseline bullet
Okay.
point um, details, and then we can always build. You can always build on more as you go. So I like to keep it a little looser
Yeah,
in this, at least as far as the guardians and the threat go, because they are kind of on the back burner in this stage, and
of
then they move
course.
to the forefront
All right.
in the next stage.
So I put my cards face down as much to keep it as a surprise
Yeah.
as anything else. So I will. Do you want to do them individually, or do you want me to flip all 4 and then work in that respect?
Let's do them one at a time. That's
Okay, so
fine.
we'll do left leg of this
Okay.
structure, and that is the Queen of Diamonds.
All right. So the queen. The prompt is a place used for gatherings. What makes this spot ideal for gatherings? What was the first gathering held here for? How does the sanctuary's power change when people are gathered together?
Okay, place used for gathering.
So I don't know if you had any preliminary ideas as far as what kind of sanctuary we were
I
going to
didn't.
have.
Yeah, I didn't want to taint too much. I guess certain media will always influence. So in my mind, this gathering place has a large fire pit in the middle, but it's a slightly raised brickwork fire ring that descends down into a sunken fire pit. So there is light and warmth that emanates up from the depths of this almost well. It's not as deep as a well, but where the fire is sat. And round the outside on maybe flagstone floors are wooden curved benches, so everybody sits facing inwards, everyone sits around the fire. There is not a focal point as such, but there is a gap in the seating that allows the entrance and or access and egress into the area, and where a focal person would draw attention from the group, and I think something special. I think that when we're all gathered in this place, this hearth, I guess, the hearth of the sanctuary, that the flames glow and flicker in different colours. No more are they ambers, yellows, oranges, and reds of flame. They're a mixture of greens and purples that shimmer, iridescent shadows and light sort of flicker around a arched room. It's not, there's no frescoes, there's no paintings on the ceilings, but the way the light dances from the flame when we're all gathered there sort of brings the place to life and sort of brings our community together.
Oh, I love that. So will we call this the hearth? I like the idea of calling this the hearth.
Yeah, this will be the hearth.
Yeah. So then what I do when I was designing and like playtesting out, what I would do is I would take like an index card or a post-it note and write the basics of the location and then stick it on the card so that when I'm looking at my place space and I'm looking at my map, I'm able to be like, oh, this is here, this is here, this is here. To kind of keep I'm a very brief, messy note taker. So that's, I like doing like the post-it notes where I can just do like a overall glance and be able to see what my map is. But however
it works for anybody.
Whatever floats your boat. If you want to write more in-depth journal entries and just make a note, whatever you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone for the sticky note approach for this, so I can sort of quick glance and remind myself. I think if I was playing this solo, I'd definitely be maybe dedicating a page or a section of a page so I could keep that going, or maybe recreate the map in the book and then write text on a separate page so I can keep the info. But I've gone for a sticky note in this case, but for the hearth.
Yeah, I think it's definitely depending on if you're playing it with somebody or playing it alone, affects the medium in which you're creating.
Yeah.
And then we have a question about the threat. So we're what makes them such a fierce enemy?
They have the power to extinguish our flame, our hearth. They will rob us of our vitality in that sense and our hope.
Ooh, giving me like an Olympic flame type, when the flame goes out, our powers go out type of vibe, and I'm into it.
Yeah, even if it's not sort of physical power, just that symbolism of power.
Yeah.
That the hearth gives us.
That's like, as long as this is burning, we are safe, we are home, like this is our place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Next card.
So I've done, gotta stop knocking the microphone. I've done the left leg, so I will do the right vertical leg rather than the corridor. And that is the 8 of diamonds.
Okay. Oh, so the 8 of diamonds is the main source of water. What kind of water source is this? Is there fear the water source will ever run out? What about the sanctuary's power makes the water flow differently here?
The sanctuary uses the hearth. It is the heart, but it is also the power cell. That's why the threat is so substantial. This room is separated because it acts almost like a steam generator. The water flows through the warmth of the hearth, sort of moving through the stone, warms this room, purifying the water, creating the steam that is then collected and taken for our vegetation and things like that. So it is through this purification of steam and collecting of the waters that we cleanse ourselves and we feed ourselves and we power using some of that steam other sections of our sanctuary.
Yeah, and I like the idea. I think it fits in well to the how does the water flow differently here? Like the idea that the water like comes up as steam and the water that we're using is the collected condensation rather than it just being like
A
it's
flow, yeah.
a flow of river or anything. Like whatever is flowing is underground, and then we collect it once it condenses. Is very cool. Like I'm just imagining this very rounded cave-like room that's just covered, the domed ceiling just covered in water droplets that are being collected.
And you have to step down into it. So, because of the amount of condensation that is created, it's sort of a couple of inches of water is always sort of moving around, ready to be collected by our community.
Yeah. Oh, and we have another question about the threat. How do they know that the sanctuary and its power exists?
The byproduct of the hearth's heat upon this water chamber, this room, this source of fluid and hydration for us, does release almost like a steam cloud. We have to allow some of the pressure out, or potentially sort of blow the lid off it. So every so often that buildup of steam is released through a sort of a piping system which whistles loudly. Its release lets our community know that it's time to go and empty and check on our sort of steam room, effectively, so they can hear that whistling sound as it rattles through the pipeworks.
Yeah. Perhaps this is the only place in any immediate vicinity where there is like potable, usable water. So that makes it extremely valuable to anyone outside of this community, that they'd want to take it for themselves.
Absolutely.
Or rather, they'd want to just
stop us
move
from having
in and just move in and take the space for themselves.
Okay. Yeah. People are horrible. Why can't they just leave us in our sanctuary? So that's left leg, right leg, effectively. So I'll do the cross room, the horizontal playing card is the 2 of diamonds.
Okay. Ooh. An area that bears the scar of a past disaster. What did this place look like before disaster struck, and what does it look like now? What kind of disaster struck this place? How has the sanctuary's power been weakened here as a result?
When the sanctuary was first founded, and the warmth of the hearth and the sort of conjunction with the water well, the steam room, came into being, we were still learning of technology. We were still planning, still learning, still understanding. We hadn't built the release system that we now sort of know to listen out for, that our enemies, the threat, have become aware of. And there was a pressure build-up. So the area in front of our steam room exploded with a hot pressure, buckling part of the wooden structure and pushing it out. So now this sort of entranceway down towards the steam room away from the hearth is actually exposed to the elements. More of a sort of a conservatory type construction, but open. So there is a walkway that sort of becomes covered towards the hearth, and you can feel its heat as you approach the doorway for the hearth. But here you get that strange sort of cross between the moisture of the steam room, the fresh air here in the sanctuary's grounds, and the warmth as we move towards the hearth.
And then we have a question that we can answer about either the guardians or the threat. And that is, where did they come from? Or where do they come from? Depend. So that's either the guardians or the threat. And I feel like it's equally interesting to do both, so I don't really have a preference.
We will say that the guardians had been displaced. They were looking for a place to settle and forge new lives with the community that they were able to sort of bring with them, collecting a myriad of folks from cultures across the lands they travelled in search of a place that they could call home, as we would want our sanctuary to be. They have brought some knowledge of sort of engineering with them to a certain extent. The creation of the hearth was built around that sort of central room and the steam generation, but they didn't have somewhere to call their own, so the sanctuary became that here in this location.
Very cool. All right. Last card.
Okay, I'm just going to make sure I write dispossessed peoples. There we go. I will put my sticky note on my playing card. Okay, last card is the King of Diamonds.
Ooh, okay. A place considered sacred. Is this place kept from most, or can any come here? What event happened here for this place to be deemed sacred? What makes the sanctuary's power so strong here?
When the Guardians first settled, they needed to establish a home. They needed to establish a place of their law and the community to spring out from then. So this place is open to visitors, but is also for the privacy, for reflection. The Guardians encourage us to both rely on each other and look inward to build inner strength, so we can then help others in need within our community. This place allows us to focus our thoughts and channel our energies into what we can perceive to be the betterment of the community, whether we find clarity and purpose, or we are able to deliberate problems which come up and able to sort of fashion answers and reasonable requests for assistance should that not be forthcoming. This is effectively a prayer room for the mind, almost a contemplation room that is held in high regard because of how the Guardians established it to begin with.
All right. And question about the Guardians. What abilities, physical or supernatural, do they have? And how did they get them?
They have led the sanctuary through periods of great engineering. The source of this knowledge and the understanding behind it is far beyond my comprehension. It's whether in lands from before they learned these trades, or whether these trades were given to them by others, is yet to be discerned. And I almost don't want to know. It is our togetherness, our community that drives our sanctuary forward, that brings us our internal prosperity so that we can reach out to others. So it may be supernatural, but I don't know.
All right. So that's our sanctuary. And once the sanctuary is created to your satisfaction, it's time to fight to keep it safe.
We will certainly try.
Yep. So the second phase of the game is what I call the confrontation phase, or just the battle phase. And the way that it works is almost identical to the map making phase. You will take the deck of cards that you made up of the hearts and the spades shuffled together, and one by one you flip a card on top of one of your locations in your sanctuary, and wherever you have chosen to flip over this confrontation card is the location that this confrontation is happening in or around. And not every location in your sanctuary needs to have a confrontation happen there. You can let the story guide you. You can lay the cards wherever you want. And once you've picked your location and you flipped your card, the first thing you do is we will read the top half of a prompt and then roll to see if we are successful, or not if we are successful, to see how successful we are, because the premise of this game is that the Guardians are always going to be able to drive the threat back. Always. There is no all-out failure here. It is just a matter of whether or not they are able to easily push back the threat, or if they are able to push back the threat at a cost. So successes will celebrate being able to win, not necessarily easily, but without major losses or sacrifices. And a failure will be more reflective in talking about what was lost in the efforts to drive the threat out.
Okay.
And the mechanic is fairly easy. So, like I said at the beginning, it's 1d6. When you start the game, anything over a 2 is a success. So a 1 or a 2 is a fail, 3, 4, 5, 6 is a success. If you succeed, you succeeded, yay. You go to the success section of the prompt associated with that card, and then you move on to the next card. If you fail, like I said, things have been lost in that failure, and it is now moving forward harder for the Guardians to push the threat back, which means that now the threshold for success is increased. So when you start the game, a 1 or a 2 is a failure. After your first failure, a 1, 2, or 3 is now a failure.
Right.
If you fail again, it goes up to a 4, and so on and so on. And once you have reached a point where you cannot roll a success, that is when you move to the end game phase.
Okay.
And there are definitely ways to play with this. If you want the game to be shorter or longer, you can play with a higher die. You can start with a higher difficulty or a lower difficulty. You can definitely adjust this depending on how long of a game you want to play. The way that I've set it up here is what I've found is a good length, but you can always adjust as you see fit. If you want to play a little longer, you can always flip more cards. But that's what I say. We can play it mechanically and see, or if we want to just do one card for each location, because I know we're trying to make it a little.
We can do that. We'll do one per location.
Yeah, we'll do one per location, and then we'll roll for how our end game ends up.
Okay. While I think the hearth is symbolic to the community, I think the steam room, the water resource, is more of a target for a threat.
That makes sense.
So I'm going to flip the first card onto the steam room, the water room, and it is the 4 of hearts.
All right. So I'll read the first part, and then we'll roll and see.
Yeah, please.
It is early when a lone figure approaches, unarmed and hands raised above their head. The Guardians immediately take a defensive stance against them, knowing that the threat moves in numbers and fears more lurking out of sight. When the figure gets within earshot of the Guardians, they loudly declare that they are a representative of the threat and are here to offer their immediate surrender. Silence passes over everyone assembled, the Guardians taken aback by this declaration. Many are overjoyed at the news, grateful that a lifetime of conflict has come to an end, but others believe it too good to be true.
This could go. Yeah, okay. And now I'm rolling the D6.
The D6, yep.
Okay, so.
And you just want to roll above a 2.
Come on, averages. 4.
All right, so on a success. The Guardians study the figure for a moment as they weigh their options. It doesn't take much for them to see through the threat's lies and send the representative away, immediately arming themselves for battle as the figure disappears from view. As they march towards the sanctuary's entrance, they are met by the threat, ready for a fight. The Guardians raise their weapons and charge into battle. Victory is swift and casualties are few. What was the key to the Guardians' success? How do those who nearly fell for the deception feel once the true plot was revealed?
The key to the Guardian's success, so from where I was, and I wasn't directly involved in the conflict, but from what I could see, that the Guardians, they were able to sort of rush and outmaneuver. They were swift in thought and swift in body. Their tactic to sort of impact and maneuver quickly overcame the threats, the enemy's static response. And I turned to a few of the others, and their faces, there was hurt. Though we had sustained in casualties, the faces of those around me who had believed the lie was painful to watch. We sat by the hearth for a while as the Guardians returned and informed us that at least for now we were safe, and they offered time in the contemplation room for those that needed their aid and their guidance. But many who were caught unawares, drawn into the lie and surrendered to it, you could tell it had hurt.
All right. What's next?
And next, we will go for the damaged room across the middle, looking like a weak point to the structure. We will say. I'm glad you agree. It is the 10 of Hearts.
10 of Hearts. Okay. The Guardians are already engaged with the threat, standing their ground and driving them back at a steady pace when shouts for help cut through the fray. A frontal attack has been a distraction for now an even larger force from the threats circling from behind, weapons raised as they hope to take advantage of the worn-down Guardians.
Okay. And I roll for a 3.
Okay. The threat has once again misjudged the might and vigor of the Guardians as they fight to protect the Sanctuary. Though they have been embroiled in this assault for hours, they fight with the same strength and ferocity that they did when the battle began. How are they able to maintain their stamina in this way? Before long, the threat knows they cannot best the Guardians and a retreat is ordered. What show of force from the Guardians proved that they had won?
We could hear the clashing of swords and steel, the cries of pain. The Guardians were out in the foot, dealing with what we believe to be the largest opponent yet the enemy, the threat, had sent us. And the noise from echoing across the sanctuary grounds, the structure of those attacking us now from this new direction, it caught certainly myself and many others off guard. The Guardians, though, they were swift. They were able to sort of split their forces initially, still driving back those initial attackers from the front, and then with almost indescribable resources of internal strength and power, stillness of mind, they moved and recovered the situation to the we were in awe. Friends, dear friends of mine, that took up arms, and it is with this newfound courage we assisted the Guardians. We couldn't do much, and we were certainly an impedance if we got in their way, but having our weapons and our tools at hand, I guess, showed that we were one community, one force, one team, one wall, one sanctuary. It was then that the Guardians, they used this new weapon. They changed this tactic somehow. I hadn't seen it before, and I may never see it again. But they were able to break up the enemy lines, pushing in 2 directions, maybe 3. I was losing count. There was things happening all around me. I held my nerve. I held my tool, and together as a community, we aided the Guardians in pushing them back. All right. What's next? Let's go with the contemplation room.
Okay.
as the threat has seen the Guardians' mental capacity for combat and determination. Maybe try and break them mentally before.
Take away their recovery space.
Yeah, sort of attack them mentally before they go for the spiritual heart, the hearth. So we'll go for the contemplation one first. And that is an 8 of spades.
Okay, spades. On a warm, foggy morning, a massive figure approaches the sanctuary. They stop a few feet from it, staring down at the guardians who rush to protect the sanctuary's entrance with unblinking eyes. In a low, booming voice, they issue a challenge. They say that the threat is waiting nearby in numbers that would crush the guardians without issue. But if they send forward a single champion to face them in one-on-one combat, the threat would not attack in full force. News of this challenge spreads throughout the sanctuary, and within moments, a guardian steps forward to meet the challenger.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So I roll, and I got make sure I get this, a 6.
All right. The champion draws their weapon and rushes at the challenger. Who is this guardian who has stepped forward for the fight? Though outmatched in size, the guardian manages to parry every blow the threat throws at them, dodging out of the way while also trying to sneak in hits of their own. After many tense minutes, the guardian manages to land a winning blow against their challenger. What does this look like? What makes it clear the fight is over? When it is clear the fight is done, the guardian lowers their weapon and makes their way back to the sanctuary, leaving the threat to retrieve their fallen champion. How is this victory celebrated by the guardians?
Nice. When we heard this booming deep voice, we rushed to see what was going on, to be greeted by the sight of a titan, a giant, a behemoth of a person. We were taken in awe. The guardians, though, they were strong, and we heard from the gardens the last flurries of the scythes cutting down some of our plants, and we heard a steady set of footsteps, and as they came through from the garden towards where this opponent stood, towering above the guardians, we could hear the guardians start to break into the chant for Timus the Spirited. And Timus, you could see, wore simple robes used just to do the menial garden work that the guardians help us with. And as he moved through, he wielded these 2 scythes, one in each hand, and was so slick. It was not showy. It was confidence. It was reassurance. It was though he was telling us through movement that we were safe, that the guardians were here for us. I watched. At Timus, it was like a dance. It was like almost like a ballet of movement and rotation, as parry of strike and small nicks and cuts. And we were watching as this giant sort of began to sink, as small slashes across the legs and the lower arms seemed to be weeping and pooling blood on the ground around them. The more the Titan slowed down, almost the quicker time seemed to go, but it was never direct for a kill. He potentially could have killed this Titan at any time. We were struggling to breathe. We were caught in the exhilaration, the excitement. We were there, but we were stood back. We were watching it. We were witnessing something spirited, something of our hearts being portrayed in front of us as Timos reached and was using the handle of the scythe in one hand, and as he moved across, he leapt gracefully from ground to Titan's knee and drove the handle of the scythe in under the chin of this Titan, and there was an audible crack and silence for a moment, and I thought I'd lost my senses, but the moment just seemed to hang as the Titan's body began to sway and fall backwards. Timus landed almost poetically on a single foot and gracefully strode to join his guardian companions. His robes slightly marked with the sort of the flecks of blood, but he was not showered or dirty. But yet this Titan, he fell. I can't remember the rest of it. What was the rest of it? I got a bit too caught up in that.
How is the victory celebrated?
Once the Titan had been recovered by the enemy and moved free from our grounds, we celebrated around the hearth. Timus had changed and wore new robes, and as the guardians sort of stood around the extremities of the hearth, we, the community, the mere people within, we celebrated with Timus. It was his victory. It was our victory. He retold it and regaled us with the tale and mocked the Titan, but simply to remind us of how great a community we are and how we must look to serve and protect each other as well as ourselves.
Fantastic.
And then the hearth, I suppose.
Yeah. Last and certainly not least.
I don't want to break it. The 6 of spades.
That's like that's what I'm going for with this, is that's like, yeah, you spend your time creating these places and you're like, oh no, but I don't want anything to happen to them. 6 of spades. Okay. In the afternoon, right before the midday meal, a pair of patrolling guardians spot something amiss near one of the borders of the sanctuary. When they move closer to investigate, a trap is sprung. One of the guardians manages to free themselves from the trap just as the threat descends upon the trapped guardian and carries them away from the sanctuary towards their nearest hiding spot, determined to extract as much information as they can from the prisoner.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
It does not.
I rolled another 6, which is surprising.
All right. The guardian steals themselves as the interrogation begins. A cacophony of voices scream at them to tell them the secrets of the sanctuary and the guardians, to tell them anything that will make the threats fight against them easier. Soon the emotional torture turns physical when they refuse to reveal what they know. How do they find the strength to endure? What do they think of to distract from the pain? Just when things feel unbearable, they shout out a lie, one they are hoping is believable enough to fool the threat. What do they say? The lie is believed, and thinking they have won, the threat tosses the injured guardian out to make their way back to the sanctuary, battered and bruised, but satisfied, knowing their lie has worked.
The guardian, Safina, they hold their strength, they hold their will, they hold everything dear. The mental torture, they are able to sort of focus and put themselves into the contemplation room. They're able to sort of almost detach themselves mentally from their body while they're being berated with questions and noise. They're able to use the time that they've spent in the contemplation room to sort of center themselves and just let the words, the harshness, the aggression, the hate, the anger, and all these feelings just wash over them like water off a duck's back almost. But when it turns physical, something new is needed, something to overcome that barrier, something that draws strength from community. They begin to imagine, picture, and focus upon the hearth. The flame from the hearth as it changes from the reds, the ambers, the oranges, through to these sort of greens and purples, that source of communal power, the flame, the one that burns, the one that is the heart of the community they guard, steels their resolve as the injuries increase. They can only take so long, and using the flame as like a fuel, they tell the enemy that there is a passage into the side of the hearth that would extinguish the flame and allow access under the sanctuary in a sort of covert tunnel system, similar to sort of an underground river almost, that would intercept into the hearth itself. There are tears streaming not only from the pain but what feels like letting the community down, knowing how important, how integral, how instrumental the hearth is to the community, they break, and tears stream as they're dumped upon the side of the road.
Ooh. Oh.
Did I catch all of those prompts? I think I did.
You did. You did. Now, since we've been doing nothing but winning, normally we would keep going, but because we are playing an abridged version of Sanctuary,
We're playing to
we will
lose.
move onto the last stand. So the fate of the Guardians has been sealed. They cannot survive the final fight against the threat, and by the time the confrontation is over, only one will remain. So we will roll a d6, and depending on what is rolled, will determine what the last stand looks like.
All right, here we go. Well, it bounced out my dice tray, but it rolled a 1. So,
all right.
So, yeah.
All right. The battle wages on for days, with no side taking clear lead over the other. It is nearly a week of relentless fighting before both sides have fallen, the sanctuary ground strewn with the bodies of guardians and threat alike. There is a moment of stillness before a lone figure rises to their feet amongst the carnage. One of the threat has survived. They begin to stagger through the sanctuary, searching for their prize, claiming the sanctuary's power for themselves. As they stand in front of the sanctuary's source of power, something in them shifts, and they cannot bring themselves to take it. Why not? What has caused this change of heart? As they walk away from what they nearly gave their life to claim, what all of their comrades gave their lives to claim, they make a vow to stand where the Guardians fell and protect the sanctuary. The sanctuary rewards their decision by instilling some of its power in them. How does that manifest? How will the new Guardians' previous allegiance to the threat help them face new threats that may come to the sanctuary? This is my favorite ending.
Well, that was luck. Okay.
I know there's a lot of questions in there.
That's all right. That's all right. Shaken and exhausted, I struggle to my feet. I catch my breath. I'm coated in dirt, blood, some of it my own, some of it my friends. Scanning the horror at my feet, I know what I came to do. I know what must be done, what was charged to us for coming here, why we have worked all this time. The power. I step over fallen comrades, weapons dropped, the eerie stillness around me. It's too much, but something calls to me. Something down this flagstone corridor, through this door, this warmth. It calls to me. This is what I'm. This is it. I've done it. We. Okay, not we. I. All right. The warmth. It beckons me forward, but all I see is chairs and this flame. What does it mean? Do I take the flame? Is that how this? But they didn't have the flame. The flame has always remained. The flame has always remained. Everyone outside, they were not defending a thing. They were defending this isn't an object like we were told. This is a notion, a concept. I've destroyed a community to save a community. I'm the only one left. There's only me now. Me and the flame. I guess it's what I deserve. I guess no. We can make this right. This community, this room, this communal hall, this group. It shan't be allowed to fall again. The flame must burn on. I cannot leave it. As I move closer to the fire pit, I stride through the benches there. Simple but beautifully carved, curved benches where they must have sat and drank and sang and told tales and supported each other. And we have come in. Well, I have come in. The warmth, I feel it. I feel it through me. I feel it hold me. I feel that it is not mine, but mine to protect. I feel that I will never be cold again. I feel like I have a lot to learn in this place. As they place a hand upon the small stone wall around the fire pit, the flames flick through and change to that sort of purple-green coloration, and you see a thin veil of it, not crawl up the skin, but begin to sort of shroud the skin of this individual and bathe them in this sort of swirling, soft flame of purples and greens, and they move across through these seats to the door, and they close the door and remain with the fire to defend it and protect it until the next community can come and surround it.
Oh, wow.
How was that?
Oh, that was so good.
Well, I hope I did your game justice.
You absolutely did. I'm just like sitting here with this. Oh, my heart's all warm. I mean, it's sad because of the sad stuff that happened in the game, but my heart's all warm because.
The hearth is there.
Yes, exactly.
And home is where the hearth is. So, if I wanted to continue on the tale of the lone survivor, as it were, the Sentinel, as they now are,
Yes.
how do the mechanics of Sentinel differ from Sanctuary? So, if I wanted to move from this game, having established all of this lore and backstory, and really sort of felt a connection with this location, and now this individual that stands as our Sentinel, how do the mechanics change?
Yeah, so they don't change too much, which is cool. Really, if you are, I will just say, porting, if you're doing New Game Plus with your Guardian and your Sanctuary from Sanctuary and you wanted to carry them over into Sentinel, it's really as easy as ignoring the world and character building questions in the beginning because or re-answering them according to your game that you have already played.
Yeah.
And then Sentinel picks right up from there. It is played the same way that Sanctuary is, so it's a deck of cards and a set of dice. The way that Sentinel works in comparison to Sanctuary is you shuffle all the cards together, you take the Joker, you put it about a third of the way down into the deck, and then you flip cards, and each suit is a different kind of prompt. So there are memories, there are items found within the sanctuary, there are conflicts and confrontations with enemies, and there is time passing. And once you know what suit you are, you roll, and there are rollable tables for each suit and prompts associated with whatever it is you roll, and you respond to the prompts much in the way that you do during both phases of Sanctuary. And you go until you get the Joker, and then the Joker symbolizes that the watch of the Sentinel is coming to an end. And then, much like Sanctuary, you roll, and depending on what amount you roll determines what the ending of your Sentinel is as their watch ends.
Wow.
So mechanically very similar. There's a little more moving parts to it, but not anything much more complex.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Than you'd see in Sanctuary.
Yeah.
But you can go check Sentinel out now. Sentinel is on my itch.io page. If you want to get a taste for it, and then
yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to say that, say someone has played through Sanctuary like we have, either in a collaborative or a solo experience, and then wanted to, because we've told the tale from the Sanctuary perspective, and we end up with this lone individual. Sentinel would then tell the backstory of the lone individual and then their experiences within the Sanctuary. So I love the way that sort of you can fill out both sides of the story and how it sort of knits together in that respect.
Yeah. Um, I like it a lot because Sentinel is a very personal game. It's a very individual game,
Mm,
and Sanctuary is about the community. It's about groups. It's about the Guardians as a whole without focusing on any one or two particular Guardians. It's about the threat as a whole. It's about the
mm,
Sanctuary as a place, whereas Sentinel is much more personal because it is just this one person. And I wanted it to work like that, where it's like you could take Sanctuary and play through Sanctuary and then look at everything with a completely different lens
mm.
playing Sentinel, because it's a personal remembrance and a personal reflection on everything that has happened rather than a larger scale overview, which is
Yeah,
what you get with Sanctuary.
yeah, yeah. No, amazing, and I'm no doubt that a great deal of people will enjoy picking this up and going through it again, either as a solo experience or in a collaborative experience. Um, Speaking of collaborative experiences and sort of moving forward, we'll use community as a bit of a tie-in here. When are we next going to see you appearing on things? Have you got shows coming up? Because you do podcasts and streams and things. Are you expecting to come on some further into the year?
I do have some stuff coming up. It's stuff that hasn't been announced yet, so I can't really talk about it. I have been doing a lot of podcasts, um, kind of like one-off things,
Hmm.
leading up to what has taken all of my attention lately, which is my Zine Quest Zemo Kickstarter for Sanctuary.
Hmm.
So I've been talking to some wonderful folks on podcasts talking about Sanctuary. So I am looking to, so Sanctuary is done but not released. Sentinel is out. And I am running a Kickstarter campaign through the month of February. So it launches on February 1st and goes for 30 days till March 2nd, for a physical zine of both Sanctuary and Sentinel. We are going, I am going to be releasing them as a 2-game zine. So it'll be both full games in the zine,
Hmm.
um, that will be beautifully laid out by my wonderful friend Mac. You can get a little sneak peek of the aesthetic on the pre-launch page. We are going for a very medieval manuscript type feel.
Okay.
I'm a
Yeah.
huge medieval literature nerd. She's a big medieval art nerd. So we're super excited about um, that being able to come together, because Sanctuary is a game, like I said, I've been working on for a while and really not struggle, but it was a tough decision to figure out whether or not like this is how I wanted to do it, if I wanted
Hmm.
to do another crowdfunding campaign. And what it comes down to, I'm like, this is a game that deserves to be beautifully laid out and in
Yeah.
print, and
Absolutely.
that's how I want people to see it.
Hmm.
Um, so the pre-launch page is up now. It goes live on the 1st. I'll send you the link so you can.
Yeah, I'll make sure links are in the description below. Don't worry about
Yes. So please check it out if you liked what you heard. Um, please consider backing the Kickstarter. We've got PDF versions and uh, physical versions will be available. So this is really where I've been pouring all of my love and energy. But there is some cool actual play stuff coming up that is still under wraps right now, but I think should not be under wraps much longer. But follow me on Twitter, where I will inevitably shout a lot about it when I am able to.
it. Yeah, absolutely. We will, I'll be looking out for future announcements with respect to the actual place you're involved with. The further games, the Kickstarter, I'll make sure the link is down there and I back it myself. I felt so privileged when we arranged to play this on the podcast. So thank you so much for giving me the privilege to play through Sanctuary.
Yes.
I hope I did it justice, and I hope
100%. It was absolutely wonderful. This is the first time I've seen somebody other than me play it, so it feels good. It feels good to see it in action from someone who's not me.
Fair enough. So we mentioned the Kickstarter, we've mentioned future actual plays and other projects. Have you got much else coming on in the future? Anything else on the back burner that we should be looking out for, or anything else you're excited for in the year 2023?
I'm working on a couple things. I've got some stuff in the works. I'm currently working on finishing up a game about it's a 2-person asynchronous letter writing game about a member of a lost civilization and an archaeologist discovering the ruins of said lost civilization. And it's about like the passage and degradation of knowledge throughout time. That is like 90% done, and my brain is really dogging me on that last 10%. So we'll see when that rears its head. And then I just started work on a game for a game jam that's being run by the wonderful Super Dylan called the Winter Werewolves Jam. And it is at this point right now, and we'll see what happens within the next month. At this point right now, it is a 30-day prompt-based journaling game about a werewolf who is in love with the moon. So
lunatics and lunacy all round.
Yep. As somebody who loves the moon, I can't stop writing games about the moon. And otherwise, yeah, those are the main ones. Sanctuary has taken up most of my brain space. But now that the draft as it is for Sanctuary is done now, I'm kind of like pouring back through my pile of WIPs and being like, oh, this game is like 60% done. Let me pull this out. So I'm revisiting a lot of stuff that kind of fell to the wayside when Sanctuary clicked, and that became all that I did for like 6 months.
Well, so we can follow you. We mentioned the Kickstarter, but where can we find you on social media, please?
So you can find me, you can mainly find me on Twitter. I am there until the last bit of that ship sinks below the briny deep. So you can find me there at Meghan Lynn FTW or Siren Song Games. I am on pretty much every other social media site under the same name. However, I will say I do not post other places. I have just snatched up my name for the in case the inevitable happens. You can find all of my games at meganlynftw.itch.io, and you can find pretty much a link to all of my stuff. Let me make sure I'm getting the site right. It's my own site and I still mess it up. Yeah, meganlynftw.com